Okay guys, so here is our second part of teaching grammar, present tenses to advanced, to intermediate advanced. So of course with high level of guys, starting from intermediates, strong intermediates and up to advanced, you don't need to be teaching, you don't need to be digging into the details of present simple and present continuous. No, you just need to cover the peculiarities. With perfect and perfect continuous, the task is a little bit different. The guys already know the concept, so they know that this kind of tenses exist, but they don't usually use them because they don't feel where to use them accurately. That's why they don't use them. So basically our task, our target for intermediate to advanced guys is to deliver them the ideas of tenses, of present tenses, and force them to start using them. And they will use them only if they understand why it is needed, so the uniqueness of each tense. So we will need to deliver the uniqueness of present continuous, present perfect and present perfect continuous, because they're usually quite okay with present simple, yet some mistakes can be made, still made, like omitting the s endings for his shit or something like that. But the focus is on those other three tenses. Okay, so as you remember from the previous presentation for elementary level, just to make it easier for the students to distinguish these tenses, to be able to recognize these tenses in their mother tongue or in their thoughts. We all think in our mother tongue, let's say Russian, not necessarily Russian, but still let's say Russian. So and then we kind of translate it to the foreign language. So present simple stands for how often, present continuous stands for when. If you see a sentence, a question, a negative sentence in Russian, I don't only mean Russian, but let's call it Russian for make it easier. If you see it, okay, in your mother tongue, and you understand that it is in present for sure, and you can ask how often, it must be translated in present simple in English. Or if it's when, it must be translated in present continuous. For example, я часто пью чай. Я регулярно пью чай. Я каждый день пью чай. How often? So present simple. Я сейчас пью чай. It's present continuous, obviously. Again, you could remind this idea to your students. You show them this presentation. And you explain, remind them the difference, and then you force them to be making their examples relevant to them. Once more, let me remind you, why do we need this kind of presentations? For two reasons. First, we need to unify our methodology, so our methodology must be recognizable and having a lot in common. Of course, you have your own teaching style, which I and all of us will really appreciate it, but we still need to have some recognizable points, and this way of presenting grammar, it could be one of these recognizable points. They are good and they are must for our image. The second reason, practical reason for you, just assistance for you in preparing to the lesson, having some ready materials and some tips how to present that in interesting yet really efficient form. Okay, moving on. So, one of the peculiarities, so we are talking about peculiarities of present continuous, because present simple, you just have to make sure that your students don't make any mistake. If they do make mistakes, you just, for example, they have to learn to notice them and correct them by themselves, because your work is done here. You don't need to explain each time to use as ending when talking in present simple, of course not. One of the ways how you can do it, it's this clapping system. You know, we have already told you about that. It is when your students are making a mistake which they know about, you just clap. They will have to correct it by themselves, and on the third time, on the fifth, on the maybe 10th time, they will stop making this mistake, because yeah, repetition is the mother studiorum, you know. But talking about present continuous, very important point is peculiarity is today. So a lot of people, even upper intermediates, strong in grammar, they think that present continuous it's only about now. No, it is not only about now, it's about today and the company. So please deliver the thought to your students, and again make them practice this. How to do that more detailedly, there is information in first part, so present tenses for elementary intermediates, please find it there, but please do it and deliver the thought to them. Yeah, the next again, so it can be speaking. So you remember that first you present the idea, then you discuss it with your students, then your students make examples and you monitor, then your students learn to be naturally using the material in their speech, in their language. Yeah, so this is how they could be used. You could be using, could be learning to use it. We are different speaking activity. You just give the pattern of the speaking and they discuss it together with their colleagues in groups, with you maybe if it's individual lesson. But you just focus so much and you ask your students to be following each other, you know, to be looking after each other, that present continuous is used every time it's needed when talking about this kind of stuff. And why I thought you company, because you remember that each activity you have to adapt to your students' needs. And for example, if it's business language, or it's like business related language, or it's just, you know, as we all teach corporate English, they could be appropriate that not only talking about your student, but your students and their company, maybe your students and their team, your students and their boss, your students and their cat, maybe if it's a veterinarian center. Okay, moving on. One more peculiarity, it's you are always doing something, yeah? You remember and explain it to your students that it's not like literally always, but somebody is doing something more often than you're ready to tolerate. It's very easy. You explain the concept, you remember that your explanation is 20%, then 80% of time, okay, time, energy spent on that, 80% you just discuss it with your students, then your students make their own example, and then speaking they mixture some other grammatical instruments with this instrument, and you just monitor that. The next, you have been. You remember that you have been is about behavior, so you explain that to your students. Okay, so now it's time to talk about non-progressive verbs and different peculiarities and differences. Yeah, so just a reminder for your students that look and feel, it has almost no difference whether it's simple or continuous. There is kind of some difference, but like maybe for the first time it will be no difference. Just you look great, you're looking great, you feel great, you're feeling great. There are peculiarities, but this is the first basic information your students need to know. Again, you explain it and then you practice that with your students. Basically, to make it even more simple, to distinguish simple and continuous, simple stands for facts, continuous stands for emotions. Non-progressive verbs, it's time to talk about them. You remember these 4 categories, but now let's cover the categories more detailedly. So yeah, and these are just some examples of the non-progressive verbs. So the verbs are never used in continuous, and they said some negative and positive feelings. The first group is the group of feelings. More detailedly how we divide these verbs into groups, or so you can find this presentation for elementary intermediate levels of present tenses, how to teach it to them. Yeah, so your students can draw a list of them, you do that together, they compete into groups, but you have to come up with this result that these verbs are never used in continuous, despite McDonald's uses the I'm loving it. It works for McDonald's. It will never work for you. Explain this to your students. The next, you remember brain activities. This again, some examples, not negatives, positives, just what they are. Again, push your students to make examples. Force them to be asking questions each other, to be asking each other questions, telling some stories and so on. Possession, yeah. Like this verse. Again, your students talk, say stories, discuss some other peculiarities with you. It's good, push them to be doing that. The next, characteristics, like this, yeah. And now it's time to basically explain, to highlight the difference between some forms. They could be used, they could be used both in simple and continuous, and basically what's the difference. We have made together with my students on one of the lessons, we have made this kind of a chart. It's like always same. How do I explain that? You use simple, so the part on the left, when it is like not your decision, when it's just the characteristics, when it's just granted to this object. You will understand, but let's at first look on this on the right, because like always continuous, it is when you decide to do something, and basically you can stop any moment. Yeah, I'm having lunch, I'm smelling, I have decided to smell this flower, that's why I'm smelling it. I'm tasting, I'm considering about it and thinking about, I'm seeing Ben tomorrow, I'm seeing my friend tomorrow, I decided to do that, I arranged that. Yeah. So this, yeah, I have decided to do all of this. This is not really like I have decided, but it just happens. Okay, it just happens. Yeah, it's just granted. Okay, I have this controversial, I understand, but still, it smells. Let's look at this example. It's like I'm smelling a flower. Yeah, the flower smells good. So its characteristics, I cannot influence it, and basically the flower itself, I believe, maybe not, but still, I believe cannot influence that very much, so it just smells this way, not really has so much influence right now on it. Again, it tastes good or bad, it's just take it for granted, it just nothing, you can do nothing with that. It's just like that. It's just as it is right now. Yeah. I think of it's just as it is now. I think this way. Of course, I can influence, true, but right now I think this way. Yeah. The same as I hear. I just hear it. Of course, like next time when you're talking to me, for example, I could be using some earplugs, but now, yeah, I hear what you are saying. Okay, maybe I don't like it, maybe I like it, but right now I don't really influence on that at this moment. That's why it's kind of simple, because right now you cannot change it like this. So yeah, like momentarily, yeah. If you have something, if you possess something, instantly you cannot change it. So you need time and efforts for that. Like this. Okay, so the next part is going to be about present perfect and perfect continuous. Watch it.